Alright, ladies and gents, usually we start with the book, but I am actually going to start with this. If you want to press pause a minute and just copy that into your notes for today, these are the steps to solve story problems in this format, and they are all going to give us systems, which again, if you don't remember, is two equations. Okay, so first things first, let's look at example 1 here, okay, and it's giving you a story problem about movie theater buying, and we got popcorn and drinks, and like how much is each cost. Well, we know that 1 large popcorn and 2 drinks cost $5.75. We know 2 large popcorns and 5 drinks cost $13. So if I know that information, how can I find out how much each one costs? So what you'll see here is they come up with these equations first. Okay, so for instance, 1x plus 2y equals 575. And 2x plus 5y equals 13, saying that x is popcorn and y is drinks. And then it's a system that we can just times the top line by -2 and times everything there and simplify it out. Or what this is doing is using substitution by minusing 2y to both sides, then plugging that into x. So either way you can get it. I think that if they are set up as a problem like this, why not just use elimination now? Right? Like we can do anything we want now, substitution or elimination, as I have said. So let's look at example 1 here. Example 1, skill practice 1, says Lynn went to a fast food restaurant and spent $9. She purchased 4 hamburgers, and 5 fries. So 4 hamburgers plus 5 fries cost her $9. Okay. And then it keep going. Ricardo went to the same restaurant and purchased 10 hamburgers and 7 French fries for a total of $18.10. So to figure out, again, how much it is, we can use substitution and we can solve for a variable here, but that's going to be nasty. Or we could just go right into elimination. And that's what I would do, at least. So what can I do here? Like, what number does 5 and 7 go into? 35. So I can multiply by 7 and 5 as long as one of them is negative. Or I can say what number does 4 and 10 go into, which is 40 or 20. So let's multiply this by 5 and this by 2. And again, one of them has to be negative. I'm just going to put it on the second one for this one. So here I've got, let's see here, 20x plus 25y equals 45. Dollars if you want. Let's see here. Matter of fact, I'm just going to write it with that because the other one's going to have it. So negative 20x. Cool, now we've got those opposites. Minus 14y equals negative $36.20. Add down, I get 11y equals, let's see, so 80 cents. Borrow from there, so 880 divided by 11. That works out kind of nice. You obviously want to use a calculator here, and you get y to be, well, 888 divided by 11 is 8, so this is 0.80, right? So let's put that for the French fries. It's 80 cents, right? 0.80 or whatever, right? Dollars, okay? The burgers then, of course, we would just go back and plug that in either here or here. It doesn't matter. 4x plus 5 times 0.8 equals $9. 0.8 of 5 is actually 4 on the dot. Minus the 4. Get 4x equals 5 and divide by 4 to get x equals 1.25, which means that hamburgers cost $1.25. And that is good enough if you just want to put it like that, right? So hamburgers is $1.25 and fries is 80 cents. So I'm going to do that over and over and over again. Let's look at example 2. Okay, these notes are definitely going to be a little shorter than everything else. In example 2 here, okay, let's see here if I can move it up a little bit. Okay. It is talking about 2 separate accounts, like bank accounts, right? And Joanne has $6,000 to deposit into 2 accounts. One earns 3.5% and the other one earns 2.5%. If the total amount of interest at the end of year 1 is $195, how much did she spend on each account? Well, look at this table they have. And they're trying to say, well, first of all, I know that I have $6,000, so between the 2 accounts, x plus y has to equal $6,000, right? And then the interest here, how I'm going to get 2.5%, which is 0.025, right? I move that over 2.5, I move it over 2 places. That's how I get 0.025. And then times the amount, which is x, right? In the second account, it's 0.035 times the y, and I know in total interest I earned $195. And so that's how they have it set up that way. They wrote the equation that way, and then they have to get rid of those decimals. It's just ugly, right? If I just take the decimal and move it over, this is basically multiplying by 1,000, by the way. 1, 2, 3 places. 1, 2, 3 places. That's how I get 25x plus 35y equals, well, 1, 2, 3 places would add zeros. That's how I get that. Okay, I times it by 1,000. And then when I try to compare these, well, what they did is they just times this x by negative 25 so that the 25's cancel, and they simplified it from there, and then they plug that back in to find the other amount, right? So let's look at our example here. Addie has a total of $8,000. So I know right away that x plus y has to equal $8,000, right? The amount in the account 1 and the amount in account 2 should add up to $8,000. I also know that 5% as a decimal is 0.05 in the first account, 0.065 in the second account, and that is a total of, it says she earned $475. Okay? Now, again, I want to multiply here to get rid of decimals, so I'm going to times this whole line, again, by 1,000, because I'm moving it over 3 places. 1, 2, 3, right? So times 1,000 here. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to write it over here. Make sure that you can see that. Okay. X plus y equals 8,000. And I'm going to have 50x plus 65y equals 475,000. Again, I times everything by 1,000, so I moved the decimal over 3 places. Now, of course, I would times this line by either negative 50 or negative 65. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to pick negative 50 because it's a nice round number. Negative 50x minus 50y equals negative 50 times that would be negative 40 and then 000. Make sure I got that right. Let's see here. Nope, I gotta have one more 0. Sorry. Yep, one more 0. Okay. And then, let's see, I got 50x plus 65y equals 475,000. Those cancel. 15y equals 75,000. And of course divide. To get y to be 5,000, and that's real nice because when I plug it back in there, that's pretty easy, right? X plus 5 grand equals 8 grand. X would be 3,000. So maybe I'll just do this. $3,000 in account 1 and $5,000 in account number 2. Okay. All right. So we are going to kind of skip by example 3 and skill practice 3 because I hate it. It's really messy. It's not that crazy difficult, but it is kind of difficult. If you get to a section on this, it might be a little harder to do than you think. So I'm not going to even do it. We're just going to skip it. We're going to go right to skill practice, or excuse me, example number 4. Take a look here. Okay. In example 4, it's talking about a plane traveling with a tailwind from Kansas City, Missouri to Denver. Tailwind means the wind is behind you. It makes you go faster, right? A distance of 600 miles in 2 hours. On the return trip against the headwind, so going against the wind, it took another hour. Find the speed of the plane in still air and find the speed of the wind, right? And so they go through and they talk about P and W, which we're just going to use X and Y. Okay? And they said that the distance is the same either way, right? Well, really what we need to know for sure is that there's this formula, and it said it on the previous page here. Distance equals rate times time, right? So, like for instance, if I go 60 miles an hour for 3 hours, I've gone 180 miles. That's pretty simple stuff, right? All right, so let's take a look here at, again, example number 4 here. And what they're doing is they're saying the distance, well, that's 600, that's automatic. The rate, when I'm going with the wind, is the plane speed plus the wind speed, and it took 2 hours. When I'm going against the wind, it's the plane speed minus the wind speed, and that took 3 hours. So really what we have here is D equals R times T. So D equals R times T for the top line. Okay, D equals R times T for the bottom line. And then, of course, all they do is just distribute it. After they distribute it, they get to here. Right? Then I can just times this line by 3 and this line by 2, which is what they're doing, to get the 6 W's to cancel, and they go through and solve the problem like everything else. Alright, so let's look at an example of what we're talking about. And rather than a plane, we're talking about Dan and Cheryl taking a canoe trip. And let's see, Dan and Cheryl paddled their canoe 40 miles in 5 hours with the current speed. So this is the distance, the rate, and the time, right? Distance equals rate times time. So for the first one, it was 40 miles equals, well, 5 is the time, okay? And this is with the current. So it's going to be the canoe speed plus the current speed. And actually, that gives us our formula right there. Okay? Now, with the let's see, and then 16 miles in 8 hours against. So 16 miles distance in 8 hours against. So again, that's the canoe speed minus the current speed, because it's going to slow them down, right? Holy crap, you didn't see any of that. Let me say that again, okay? All right, so again, the distance that it says in skill practice number 4 is 40. I knew my time was 5, and this is saying with the canoe speed. So I'm going to add the canoe and current speed together as my rate. Right? Versus the second part, when they were going against it, it was 60 miles in 8 hours, and it was the canoe speed minus the current speed. Okay? Now, we're going to distribute this. This is just like what they did in the example, and I'm going to have my formulas here. Let's see, we got 40 equals 5x plus 5y, and we've got 16 equals 8x minus 8y. And hopefully you can see here, we can get some opposites here if we just times this by 8 and this by 5, because that'll give me a positive 40 and a negative 40. Then we can solve for x. Okay, I'm going to come all the way back over here and write that down. So 320 equals 40x plus 40y. I've got, let's see, 80 equals 40x minus 40y. I can cancel those out. I get 80x here. Over here I get 400, and of course I divide to get x equals 5. So we know the canoe speed is 5 miles per hour, right? Now let's go back and plug it in, and it really doesn't matter if you want to plug it in here, if you want to plug it in here, if you want to plug it in here. I'm going to use, I think, this one here. Really, again, it doesn't matter, so I've got 40 equals 5 times 5 plus 5y. 40 equals 25 plus 5y. I would subtract it, of course, to the other side to get here, and I would divide to get the current speed. So the speed of the water is 3 miles an hour. So again, canoe speed equals 5 miles per hour, and then current speed equals 3 miles per hour. And we can kind of check this, right? Like 5 plus 3 is 8 times 5 is 40. 5 minus 3 is 2 times 8 gives me 16. So we can check it that way too, okay? Alright, so at the end of the section, it shows you that another way to think about this, when they did the example in the book, is when they had these two, is just divide all that by 2 to get the variables by themselves, and then divide all that by 3 to get the variables themselves. Stuff will cancel, and it just becomes a little easier to do it that way. In our problem, you know, I guess we could have probably done that, right? We could have divided all this by 5 and got 8 equals x plus y. We could have divided all that by 8 and got 2 equals x minus y. And then look how easy that becomes. 2x equals 16. And I already did something wrong, didn't I? Divided by, oh, when I divide that by 8, it's a 5. I'm sorry, 5. So 5, let's see, so I'm adding down 2x equals, I'm still doing it wrong. What did I do wrong? Divided by 5, yeah, I got 8. I'm trying to multiply it instead of add it. That would be 10, right? and I would divide here. That's an 8. That's a 10. Divide to get x equals 5. Easier said than done, I guess. It probably is just easier to do it the other way. It wasn't that hard that way. I just made it harder than what it needed to be. All right, so your homework is only 6 problems. It's page 332 to 333, number 9, 13, 15, 17, 27, and 29. And that is all. Just those 6 problems. Okay? All right. Little reminders. Wednesday of next week is your test. So on Tuesday we will do a little bit of practice testing and reviewing. The project number 2 is not due for a little while yet, but maybe add to this. Actually, brainstorm, and we will talk about this in class. Brainstorm for project number 2. Okay? All right. That's that. Have a great weekend, y'all. Happy 4th.